Well, hi there, Internet. My name's Court, and you've got Courtside Seats for my review of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So War for the Planet of the Apes comes out tomorrow night, so I thought I'd do a little series. So we'll do Rise today, we'll do Dawn tomorrow, and War on Friday. But enough of my yakking. Let's boogie. So this isn't going to be a spoiler-free review. It's also not going to be like a spoilers discussion. I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil anything, obviously, but I may hit on some plot points. So the movie's been out for 6 years, so I think we're all good. But if you want to tap out, we're cool. Cool. So Rise of the Planet of the Apes is directed by Rupert Wyatt, and it's the sort of prequel, the first of the prequel series that shows us how Caesar became the sort of hyper-intelligent, revolutionary ape that he is. As well as humanity seemingly falls to a virus. More on that later. So the basic premise of the movie is there's an experimental drug for Alzheimer's that's being developed. And during testing, they find that it promotes neural cognition in chimpanzees. Eventually, a baby chimp is born in the lab, and James Franco's character takes the baby home, names him Caesar, and he essentially becomes Franco's foster child. Eventually, due to some unfortunate circumstances, Caesar ends up in a sort of very abusive primate sanctuary where he ends up leading a revolt to get all of the apes to a safe haven in the Redwoods forest. There's also a post-credit sequence where we find that the drug that was created to cure Alzheimer's actually ended up creating a virus, which is most likely going to wipe out the majority of humankind. So Rise going into Dawn of the Planet of the Apes never really sat well with me. It doesn't make sense. Dawn should be first, then Rise. It just feels backwards, and my guess is that when they made Rise of the Planet of the Apes, they weren't planning a trilogy. I think they thought they'd make a cool one-off sci-fi movie, and really, Rise of the Planet of the Apes gives us all the necessary pieces to lead us into the original franchise. We figure out how the apes become intelligent, how the human race dies off. It was all that needed to be. Then, of course, it was really successful, and they decided to make a trilogy of it, and that's fine because Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is not egregious in any way. It doesn't feel tacked on or superfluous. It doesn't necessarily need to be. Like I said, we have the plot beats that we need, but as a continuing story, it feels right and it totally works. So one of the things I remember from the first time I saw Rise when it came out in the theaters 6 years ago is that there are really two major parts to this movie, and one of them is good and one of them is not so good. So let's talk about the human stuff first. Most of the human stuff in this movie, not very good. James Franco and Brian Cox do a decent job. David Oleyowo, he tries. He's a fine actor, but, you know, natural talent and training can only get you so far when the dialogue is really pretty bad. Draco Malfoy is terrible in this movie. And he's given lines like, "It's a madhouse!" and "Get your filthy paws off me, you damn dirty ape." And it's just, you know, it's a wink at the fans in a movie that really doesn't need winks, and they really feel out of place. Now, the ape stuff. First off, the ape CGI is amazing. I don't know how they got the ape CGI so good and the human CGI so bad. Like, couldn't they CGI Franco's eyes open? I joke. But seriously, the CGI for the apes in this movie looks almost photorealistic most of the time. There are a few high-paced action shots where the CGI does get a little bit dodgy, but for the most part, it's an absolute marvel. Like I said, the apes look very, very real, and they're very well characterized. They all feel like different people, or different apes, and they all have very, very much their own faces. We're easily able to identify between all of them. Also, Andy Serkis in this movie, I mean, come on now. It's still a question about, you know, motion capture and awards and who knows where that's going to go, but I mean, his performance itself is absolutely stunning. And what's so cool about Rise of the Planet of the Apes is that it's so many different movies, so many different genres in one movie. It's a revolution movie, it's an action movie, it's an outbreak film, it's a family drama, and I would say the entire second act is straight up a prison movie. Let me elaborate. When Caesar is first brought into the sanctuary and put into his cell, essentially, all the other apes start throwing themselves against the bars and screeching and screaming in an attempt to intimidate him. It's like, it's straight out of the Shawshank Redemption, where they bring in the heavy guy and they're all doing the fresh fish. It's very much that scene. Or, you know, from all of the prison movies where our hero has his first day in the exercise yard and like everyone comes around to try and intimidate him and some guy tries to beat the out of him. We get that. Caesar goes out to the play yard and I believe it's Rocket tries to take him down and does so. But then later, through some wheeling and dealing, Caesar gets the big guy, in this case Buck the gorilla, to be his buddy and lures Rocket back into the play yard when no one else is around and basically gets Buck to scare the shit out of him. And now Rocket is Caesar's underling. But for me, one of my favorite moments is Caesar ends up swiping a bag of cookies, and he hands them to Rocket and instructs Rocket to give a cookie to each ape. This reminded me a lot, again, the Shawshank Redemption, when Andy Dufresne gets the couple of beers for all the guys tarring the roof. Slightly different because in this case, Caesar's doing it because he needs followers. He wants to get all the apes on his side, whereas Andy's just doing it, as he says, just to feel like a free man again. But still, the movie has so many of these prison movie tropes, and they all work so well. And that's what's so fascinating about this movie. I mean, with all of these different genres in this one flick, it could have been such a mess, but Rupert Wyatt managed to make a very cohesive film that flows very, very nicely and manages to feel familiar while being really, really out there. Great job, dude. It's not a perfect film, but I would say it's a darn good one. Now, I don't have a proprietary rating system as of yet, so I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to give Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I think I'm going to give Rise of the Planet of the Apes a...
I love you, Dr. Zan!
out of 10. So what do you think? Have you seen Rise? Have you seen Dawn? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Are you looking forward to War for the Planet of the Apes? Whatever your thoughts, hit the comments below. Let's discuss. If you enjoyed this review, please smash that like button. And if you really enjoyed it, give it a share. It helps me to build this channel, and I totally appreciate it. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do so by clicking the Courtshake logo at the bottom right of your screen. Check back tomorrow for my review of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and on Friday for my review of War of the Planet of the Apes, War for the Planet of the Apes, and of course Saturday afternoon for the Storyboard, my weekly entertainment news show. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.